Boom.
Is it flashing green?
Yeah.
Alright, you should be good. Real quick.
Yeah. This is all recorded.
It's okay,
It's
Garrett.
in your pants.
You gotta learn with being comfortable. That's why I like it.
Anybody else?
Yes. Well, we're going to be doing like a lot of journalism work and in different mediums. So we'll be doing like podcasting or like video journalism, writing, promoting our San Bernardino Nuestro on social media and all this. That's basically a showcase that we're preparing for at the end of the quarter. Yeah.
Anything else?
We're gonna basically share our stories and try to basically get together and do something that benefits the community.
So
It's
make
an
sure to read the
interactive
syllabus.
class.
Huh?
Yeah, it's like a really interactive class.
Make sure to read the syllabus.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going through it and it was like it talked a lot about what was gonna go on and how it's gonna be a really interactive class. And it kind of like intimidated me because I was like, I've never done anything like this ever. So it's like most of the time you're in class taking notes, sitting down at a table, and it's like kind of it made me nervous.
Trying to be invisible, right? This is the opposite. That you gotta be out here. You gotta be here. Yeah. Well, I hope you like it. I mean, you're still here. You came, right?
Yeah.
So that means your part of you is open, right?
Yeah, I was trying to see what it was all about.
Okay, well, today's gonna be the strongest day that you're gonna experience in this class, I think. For everybody, just to be ready, okay? I think we're good to go, huh? Did they say anything or no?
It doesn't look like the lights on.
No? Please, let's
There's a
go.
green light flashing. It is? Yeah.
What does that mean?
Maybe
It's
it's
recording.
I feel like it's on. But I don't know.
It's not connected or anything, so it'll be recorded.
¿Ya está? Okay, cool. Frida, you're next.
So I just present from here? Or?
Yeah, uh-huh.
So I did a collage just talking about my life and things that I like. This is my mom and my dad, both Mexican immigrants. Unfortunately, they got divorced when I was like 10 years old. So I'm the only one from four that was born here. I didn't put a picture of my sisters and my brother. I forgot, but they were born in Mexico. And this is me when I was little in Mexico because I lived there when I was small. And we were just like back and forth with my family with the visa. They were coming back and forth. But then I put a rosca because it's like a Mexican tradition of like El Dia de los Reyes in January where you eat like a rosca. And I really enjoy like holidays, but it's really hard because I have to pick like if I want to spend it with my mom or with my dad. And that's always a hard decision because them being divorced, I'm just like, I don't know, I would rather be with both, but I can't. And I put just like Mexican food that I like. Well, I like all types, but I couldn't fit everything, so I put like tacos and more tacos, fish tacos. And then I put my cat because he's like very important, a very important animal in my life. And I always post a lot of pictures of him, and it's sad because my cousins from Mexico will be commenting, and they'll be like, oh, we wish we had a cat too. And I'm just like, we'll get a cat, like it's not that hard. But then they say like, oh no, we barely have like money for food for us, so we can't be like wasting more money like on an animal. And I get so sad. So I'm just like, oh my god. I do spend a lot of money on my cat, but I'm just like, they can't even have one, and that's pretty sad. And then I put like I like to be outdoors and I like random trips. Like this is Vegas. This is when I went to Oregon. I've gone to Colorado. A lot of different states. And this is just Chinatown. But I put like all these places that I like to go to. But I also wanted to stay like how I have to work so hard, like actually go out because everything's so expensive. And I've been working really hard to get to go to different places. And then I also put Universal Studios. I recently just went on Sunday, and my family and I got pretty offensive because this is the spot where you can take pictures. Like right in front of it, there's like water down here, and it's like very nice. But people were making a line to take pictures there, and we were waiting in line, my mom and me, and just like some Caucasian family just like cut the whole line and sat in front of it and took a picture when there was like a line, and we were like, what the heck, like just because I don't know, like the race we were or whatever, I don't know, I just got like offended. I'm just like, did they not see the line? And I told my mom like, you should have said something, because I didn't see them until like when they were already taking the pictures, and I was like, that's so rude. But then after I saw them, I did tell them something. I was like, there was a line, and they were like, oh, sorry, but then they just walked away. I mean, they got their pictures, but without making the line. But I was just like, that's so rude. And then this is my boyfriend. We actually live together, and he's also from Tijuana, and he likes to speak like like he knows English, but he like usually always speaks Spanish to me, and I like it because it makes me not forget like where like my primary language and like where I actually come from too. And
He's from Tijuana. So they're always speaking Spanish?
oh yeah, he understands and he speaks English perfectly, but he's just like, no, like you're gonna forget your Spanish, and I'm just like, yeah, just keep talking to me in Spanish, it's fine. So that's about it.
Alright, thank you. So I wanna ask something, going back to Anzaldúa, you know, and living in the borders, not just physically, but also culturally, right, and ideologically. How would you guys relate Frida's relationship to her parents as a divorced couple, and you living in the United States with multiple identities or multiple cultures?
I think like a traditional way of thinking, like a old school way of thinking is like, obviously, in her standpoint, like her parents expected her to find a good man, like get married and stuff, but obviously she's part of like the LGBT community, so I'm sure from her parents' standpoint, they didn't expect that, but over here in the United States, it's so open, like there's so much culture and so many different, like races, like sexes and things to identify by. Like most parents are okay with, you know, whatever you find. Like, I don't know, a lot of parents are really old school ways of thinking, but I feel like our generation, because I'm a parent, so it's like I don't expect my daughter to be anything of like the cultural norms. So it's like I just want her to be happy in like whatever that is. You know what I mean? So I know like if you're pressured to be something, like you're more than likely not gonna end up to be that.
Okay, like for example, with your daughter, right? So she's gonna grow up and you guys, you know, you're separated, right?
Yeah.
How she's gonna have to do what Frida, right? Decide like where she wants to spend Christmas.
Yeah.
Where's she gonna spend the summer, right? Or you don't feel any kind of relationship of that feeling, but with your identity.
Yeah, well.
Being Latino living in the United States, for example.
Yeah.
Having to choose, you know, like being allegiant to one makes you a traitor to the other,
Yeah.
no? Because of the state of affairs.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to tell me about.
Well, yeah, because my daughter too, like her mom is white. Her mom is not Hispanic. So my daughter's a cross
So in
between.
addition,
Yeah, so, and like growing up, my parents were separated, so I was always torn between where I should go for the holidays, and they just tore us back and forth so much that it was just like, it created so much turmoil in our family. So it's like learning that, like, that's not what I want to teach my daughter. Like, I want my daughter to do what she wants to do. Like, I just want to be the best dad possible. That way, she makes her own decisions. It's like, if she wants to go with her mom, then I'm completely fine with that. If she wants to come with me, I'm completely fine with that. But it's also like the family issue. Like, if my family wants the time with her too, and it's like, she's getting taught like Caucasian traditions, like with her mom's side of the family, like St. Patrick's Day is a huge holiday for them. And then for us, like it's not really a big holiday, but Easter is, and like Christmas is a huge holiday. So it's just funny that my daughter's gonna get like kind of two cultures.
anybody else? Yes.
I understand that one too, and then I can also see it from like my family lives in Mexicali, like all my mom's side of the family. So sometimes we have to decide, like, are we gonna do a holiday there or here? And for Thanksgiving, that's not a Mexican holiday, but yet, like me and my sisters, we take Thanksgiving to Mexicali. So they always think it's like funny. They're like, why are we having turkey in November? Like, why is it such a big thing? So then we have to explain it to them, and we kind of try to mix two cultures in one. And then now they've like enjoyed it so much that they celebrate Thanksgiving. And we're like the only ones in the block celebrating Thanksgiving at Mexicali. Like the neighbors will ask us like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, and then we have to explain like, it's an American holiday, but we're kind of like clashing two cultures in one.
There's resistance, right?
Yeah.
There's resistance. Anybody else? Yes.
My boyfriend is Mexican, and so I'm constantly at his house, and I get to experience this different culture from what I grew up in and around, and so it's kind of weird for him too, because when I bring him around my family, he gets to experience this different culture, and we kind of talk about how funny it is that like my family does certain things that his family would never do, and I get to experience this almost on the daily about stuff that his family does that I would never do, and it's just like, it's something really different.
So there's a place of negotiation, right? So how would you deal with that? Because I'm trying to think, is there something that we can learn from the intimate parallel experience of being a child of divorced parents? Is there something that we can learn from that could be applied to being a child of divorced cultures? Because if you think about it, Mexican history is U.S. history. The U.S., half of it was Mexico. But somehow our cultures are divorced, even though we're part of each other, right? So is there something that we can learn from that experience that maybe we could, shift towards the cultural experience that we're having today?
Well, I just wanted to point out how like it is changing, not fast, but it is changing, because usually like the ones that get full custody of a child are the moms. But my dad had full custody of me, so I grew up with my dad, and he had to learn so much. Like, he didn't know how to cook, he didn't know how to wash clothes, he didn't know anything. But since he had me and I was only 10 years old, like he had to do all of that for me. And yeah, I just thought it was different, because usually like the moms get full custody. But I didn't live with my mom until like after high school.
Key term, learn. So I guess we would have to learn more about each other's culture. The Anglo culture that is dominating the United States at the moment needs to make an effort to learn more about the other cultures that live around it, with it. And we've lived together here since the beginning, together. Okay? So yes, and I don't say the other way around, because all the other cultures that coexisted in this country, in this land, have learned the Anglo-Dutch way that has been passed on generationally, that has been the dominant format of culture. I speak English and I understand pop culture, and Anglo history and the perspective of European, historical perceptions of the United States. I understand that. But for example, my husband doesn't know not much about Mexican culture. So there's one way, right? So if parents that are divorced do that, right, you have to learn what the needs of your children are, us being the children of the United States, right? So the country needs to learn the needs of the children, be it cultural, societal, you name it. Would anybody want to add anything to this?
I just want to say too, like, if like how you created the analogy between divorced cultures and divorced parents, like with the both divorced cultures, like I remember in elementary school, like people would always make fun of me for being whitewashed, you know what I mean? So I'm always getting called whitewashed. So once you like make fun of someone that much, then you kind of begin to feel that stereotype. So it's like I speak really like Californian, like how we were talking about last class. Like California has a strong accent, like we always talk a certain way. So like when your family from Mexico comes over here, you're getting roasted about your language. So it's funny, and then it gets to a stage almost of denial. Like, oh no, I'm not Mexican, I'm white, or like I'm whitewashed. Like you begin to say it if you're pressured that much. So how you were just saying, like, yeah.
Why do you think that happens? We talked about this in my 409 class earlier. Vanessa, right? Okay, Vanessa, can you tell us a little bit what you can remember? Why do people roast Latinos that don't speak Spanish or that are like, whitewashed?
Because they're not aware of the history of like your family, so like
Uneducated.
yeah, they're uneducated and
Who's uneducated?
the people make fun of you.
Or what don't they know? Give me an example of what they couldn't know.
That they were terrorized. They were culturally terrorized, so they didn't. So your ancestors, I don't know.
They had to hide.
They had to hide.
You know too.
And didn't want to speak Spanish because they were looked down upon.
They were persecuted. Some were hung, right? We talked about this, right? So you should know too,
We're still
Joanne.
They were in Spanish.
There were only 4
Pancho Villa.
'Cause you were my 401. And you were also my 409, right?
Yeah, like,
Was that memorable? Go ahead, Alex, sorry.
No, I could speak on what you're saying because I don't speak fluent Spanish.
Yeah,
And,
me
you know, I'm third generation Mexican American, so my family's been here for quite a bit. And but I love being Mexican. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the culture. I love everything about it. And it just so happened I am partially Filipino too as well. So my mom really doesn't really speak. She don't speak Spanish at all, but my father does. And I think there's a barrier when right growing up, he didn't want us to just talk to us in Spanish, and my mom not knowing Spanish. And, but he regrets it. He says it all the time, and now he feels the pain that like, well, we look Hispanic, I look Hispanic, and I always felt a little bit outcasted from the kids that would be like, you don't speak Spanish. And it is what it is.
And the key term, well, not the key term, but the key to understanding why that happens is because we don't have vivid records that are shown daily about the different types of cultural terrorism that our ancestors have endured in the United States for being Mexican, for being Latino. And because of that, yes, go ahead, yes.
I even think, just because, well, I really believe that life started in Africa, so, but that, and I've also looked into the 23andMe, the DNA testing and whatnot, and it's like, you really see, 'cause my grandma did, and I looked at her test, and like, I have a lot, like, even a little Asian in me, which I was like, whoa. But I was just thinking, like, and this conversation came up when, like, CNN was, I think it was, there was 2 people, actually, a black lady and a black guy. This is different shows, but they visited KKK, cross-torching thing, whatever they do. And I was just thinking, it was like, man, like, I bet if they took, like, a 23andMe test and they found they're a little bit black, they'd be like, I don't know what to do with my life. And so I was, like, always thinking, like, I just wish they would understand that, and if they did, maybe things would change, hopefully for the better. And yeah, so that's why I went to that too.
Thank you. Yeah. So it comes also from, like Vanessa said, ignoring those episodes of our history is what makes people then look at you and say, how can you not speak Spanish? Like, you're betraying us, because remember, speaking Spanish is an act of bravery in some parts of this country. I live in Redlands, and people look at me weird when I speak Spanish on the phone, right? And I don't care, I'm a doctor. Go for it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, if you don't have, if you're not educated, if you don't have money, if you are somehow marginalized, you don't want that kind of attention, right? And I'm okay, I'm privileged, right? In several ways, right? I'm still a woman and I'm still Latina, but I'm not poor, right? Because I have a job, right? And it's sustained, like, it keeps me alive and well. I'm not, como desamparada? How do you say that? I'm not hopeless, right? And I'm still feeling like I'm being brave speaking Spanish. We're talking about, like, students that have shared with me, and I've said this before in my other classes, is, for example, stop barking. When a teacher was saying that to their aunties when they were speaking Spanish in class at school. Stop barking. We come from that. Or people throwing rocks through their windows because they were Mexican, because they spoke Spanish. A student of mine telling me that there was a moment in which the grandmother decided and said, we're no longer speaking Spanish in this home, and she's never again cooked anything Mexican in their home after that incident. We don't know these things. These things are rarely shared. I ask you guys to ask your ancestors, those of you that, don't speak Spanish, ask them, like, how did it come to be? Like, when did we stop and what happened? I'm sure you're gonna find something. And what tends to be the tendency is to think that it's kind of like survival of the fittest, which is erroneous, because you're placing something of the scientific, regard of species somehow surviving due to being more, capable. And we're translocating that as a false syllogism to the way we relate culture. And we say, of course we speak English because it's a better language. Of course you adopt the dominant culture because it's a better culture. That's not the case. That's a wrong syllogism. Like, we're thinking a false logic. That's the logic of coloniality, the hierarchical way of seeing the world and thinking that because of that, it's obvious that you're gonna adopt the dominant culture. No, there's a lot more that happens. The complexity is infinite. But we have to unearth those stories and share them in order to understand why we even got to this place, right? So, in the sense that you hopefully this brings healing to you all. If you have felt that way, from other people in your same culture, it comes from those kinds of things. So, on top of what your family has gone through, also the ignorance around that. And also the fact that we've had to fight to speak Spanish. And so we feel betrayed, like you're not fighting with me. But I don't know what you went through. And I'm assuming you went through what I went through. And what I went through was bad. The stairs are bad. But they weren't as bad maybe as, your uncle getting kicked in the streets, or getting jumped. You know what I'm saying? Because we tend to project ourselves onto others, right? And we think, I've gone through it. I've survived. Why haven't you? And that's the rhetoric that we keep hearing right now. We assimilated. Why didn't you? Well, because we've been fighting to maintain our culture because we've been dehumanized due to it.
Yeah, and I like to think about the word tolerance, how they instruct people to be tolerant towards other cultures. And that's something like growing up that was instilled in people, like be tolerant towards other cultures. But I feel like it's wrong to think that way too. Because if you're being tolerant towards other cultures, you're like, oh, okay, then yeah, they're doing their thing. But we're moving towards such like an intermixed culture that it's not about being tolerant towards other cultures, but you need to learn about other cultures and be like first in other cultures. It's like doing business with like other cultures. You need to know their business practices, or else they're not going to do business with you.
It's for the benefit of all.
In my English 107 class, I think, we read an article about this author who had gone through, like we were talking about, where she was criticized for speaking Spanish and English, and they wanted her to just speak English in school, and she went through that, and we talked about how a lot of people criticize those who speak Spanish and English, but it doesn't make sense because they know more than you do, just in a literal sense. Because they can speak Spanish and English, and you can only speak English, or you can only speak one language. So those who are bilingual are incredible because they can do both. And so there's no reason to be ashamed for it. And those who criticize those people who are bilingual, they're ignorant to that.
Yes.
I had an experience once. It wasn't personal, like I saw it. I work customer service, so I was on register. And there was a Mexican lady. I was going to take her order, and she was telling me her order in Spanish. And next to her, there was a Caucasian lady. And when she started speaking, she was all like, "What are you doing? Like, we only speak American here." Like, she didn't even say English. she said American. And I was just like, what do you mean, like, American? And I don't know, it's just like how he said we need tolerance. We need to understand where people come from. And it was just, yeah.
You should have asked her, which one? Which one of the native languages should we be speaking?
Yeah, and it was just,
Because that's the American, original American peoples are native peoples. And we're sitting on native land right now, right? Close to the Chumash, right? The people who are owners of the Chumash, right? They are owners of the land. And we're sitting on it right now. So that in itself already kind of like, you know, it's lack of, because guess what? The history classes didn't teach people that. Do you remember learning about the different original peoples that lived in California, for example? Just California. There are hundreds.
Somewhat, yeah.
But not really, right? Did you learn the history of their people?
I barely remember this 'cause
Heroes,
this was
the
like
heroes
fifth
and their
grade.
battles? No, yeah. No, of course not.
Said it was
And we're yet to see that.
said it was empty land and the gold rush is what brought people here.
They didn't know how to use the land. We you know, to help them make the lands productive. That was one of the ways that was taking of the lands, stealing,
Yeah.
was justified, because they were saying that the natives weren't
Savage.
using the land and being as productive as they could be, and that was a way of justifying the takeovers of their lands. So it was like a direct correlation with productivity.
And they use like propaganda against Native Americans.
Yes. To this day, we have those stereotypes still alive, right? Like they're like good, honorable, and stoic, and you know, kind of like, and this happened too to the representations of African Americans, right? Later, like it was like they have they're less prone to feelings. Like they don't, their skin is thicker than ours, as if like they can take it more than we can. They're stronger. They're so athletic. They can work longer hours, so that's why. Oh, it's only natural that they work for us. That kind of stuff was used to justify slavery, and it's justified to steal lands as well, and to also enslave. Natives were also enslaved, by the way.
And Asians.
Asians were also enslaved, yes, especially the Chinese.
I was reading today that early sexologists in the U.S. actually passed this fact that lesbians have bigger clitorises, and that they had like African Americans have naturally bigger, like, you know, they passed it as fact as if it were science. You know what I mean? Like, our history is racist. We gotta recognize that.
That's true.
And again, it wasn't just racist for racist sake. It was racist to justify the illegal and dehumanizing actions against the people that were living in these lands.
Repression.
Wow, thank you. Crazy, huh? How that took us to this. That's how it works. That's how it works. Okay, Andy, you're next.
Hello, everybody.
And you need the computer or no? Yeah, go ahead. You can start. Yeah, preparing while he's presenting.
So yeah, for this project, I went ahead and wrote up an excerpt for a poem that I'm creating. And in this poem that I'm creating, I write, in the poem that I write, it embodies social scrutinies of the Chicano identity. And on it, I really examine the life and the struggle and the battle between two identities. And in some cases, we must let go or forget a language to enhance our position. And in the poem, I talk about the differences between trying to fit in here, but then trying to fit in with a culture as well. Because when you're here in the United States, you're expected to perform in a certain manner, and in doing so, you kind of forget your culture. You forget your native language and who you are. So